Don't touch my.
Welcome to Farno's Whoscussion. Stepping in today is that random sick guy, filling in for that random guy. And they've got the wonderful Harriet Skelly on board. Hello, Harriet Skelly.
Yes, the not sick version.
Yeah, the not sick version. All right, so let's go ahead and refine ourselves a full M of Tyranium with the Dalek Master Plan.
Oh, yes.
Now, we get a taste of the Dalek Master Plan in A Mission to the Unknown. And this pretty much picks up from that, and in a strange way, picks up from the Trojan story. So it's a sequel to both of those stories in tandem, if that makes sense. Wibbly wobbly before there was a Stephen Moffat. Alrighty, so we're on planet Kemble, and an individual by the name of Mavic Chen is cooking up a plan with the Daleks. To go ahead and join their Galactic Council. Now, Mavic Chen is meant to be Chinese, but is quite clearly played by a white man in yellowface, which wasn't illegal at the time. So that was interesting. It was very strange to see.
Considering that there probably were Chinese actors around at the time.
Yeah, and Chinese actors end up making an appearance in The Mind of Evil and the Third Doctor's run, so it's not like there weren't any. So we've got Katarina who's traveling with the Doctor now, and she legitimately thinks that the Doctor is from Elysium, which is the ancient world version of heaven, and she thinks that the Doctor's on the way to take them there, because Katarina's under the impression she's dead. For some reason. Not entirely sure where she got that from. I think she thinks... Well, I suppose she's from the ancient world. What does she know about technology? And the TARDIS to her is quite legitimately going to be magic.
Yeah, and I mean, most of their magic in the ancient times, especially in Greek ancient times, is it was based heavily around the afterlife. So the moment you start witnessing magic, or magic starts happening to everything around you, you would immediately believe that you had probably died.
Yeah, I probably would have thought the same thing. I'm from like the ancient Asia, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm dead, and this is just a journey to the. I'm gonna roll with that. And the Doctor's all like, "Can you just call me the Doctor, my lord?" No, no, girl. I'm just the Doctor, my lord. All right, okay. So the story picks up with Stephen getting blood poisoning from that injury he got from. Was it Troilus who gave him the injury? Oh no, it was a random Trojan guy, right? It's just some random guy, that Katarina ends up saving him from, which is strange. Isn't that treason?
Guess so. But she thinks she's going to heaven for it.
Yeah, exactly. I get to go to heaven if I stop this guy from getting killed. What's his name? Docomedes? What did Stephen go around calling himself? Diomedes, that's what it was. And so Stephen's got himself, I suppose, was it? What the heck?
Tetanus?
Yeah, there he is. Tetanus. I was going to say tinnitus, but that's with your ears. So he's got tetanus, and the Doctor's like, I need magic medicine for that. I'm like, I'm pretty certain you'd have the cure to tetanus, mate. But he doesn't for some reason.
Well, the thing is, I imagine Stephen would have already been vaccinated for tetanus.
Yeah, because he's from the future.
Yeah, so he just needs... So I guess the Doctor would just need to, re-vaccinate him for tetanus. So I could understand, but it just means he, needs to take him to, 20th century Earth. That's it. That's where you need to take
Or, just find some weird hospital filled with cat ladies, We'll never know.
Yep, that works too. Just any Earth. Any Earth works.
And so we're introduced to two space agents, Brett Vian and Kurt Gantry. And Kurt doesn't last very long.
But Brett is played by
Nicholas Courtney.
Yes.
So awesome. That means that Kate's great grandson travelled with the first Doctor. That's cool, man. That is so cool.
That's absolutely that's canon now.
That is Whoscussion canon. You heard it here first.
But it does mean that her great 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 granddaughter also travels with the Doctor.
this
But
is
we'll get
this
to that
is
later.
Yeah, we'll get to that very soon. And I also need to explain why they don't have the same surname. But anyway, marriage
Yes.
maybe. So
Probably.
yeah, so Kurt doesn't stick around for very much longer, and Brett ends up finding himself in sort of a weird way. He's there looking for the recordings that they should have gotten from Corey, who was the guy who ended up being the one who got killed right at the end of the of Mission to the Unknown.
Yep.
So it's a really good tie-in from Terry Nation, bloody genius actually. And I don't think any shows at the time were doing that. Random cutaway episodes dedicated to literally none of the cast members.
I believe we went over that. So that's
Yeah.
not a very common thing to happen.
Yeah, no, it's very, very strange. So Maverick Chen, Guardian of the Solar System, is being watched on future TV, and he's got a fangirl in the station, who sort of is. She doesn't appear after episode 4, right? She's just sort of there and then isn't anymore.
Which one was that?
The fangirl that's all like, oh, Maverick Chen's the greatest. I'm so glad he's the leader of the solar system.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. She just sort of disappears randomly. It's that happens to a couple of characters as we go through the story. But so Maverick Chen, the Guardian in the solar system, is talking about how awesome he is, and that Earth hasn't been in war for 25 years. They've had 25 years of peace, which, considering we're the human race, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, actually, considering about the time that it is, what time was it?
It's 3,000 years after the Daleks invaded Earth, so that makes the year 5,000.
So it's the year 5,000, and it's only been 25 years. So that means there must have been a lot of wars in between now and then.
Yeah, just all the time.
If they're celebrating 25.
Yeah, we spent 25 years not killing anybody, and the fangirl puts that down to Maverick Chen's leadership. Which is interesting. This one random space astronaut Chinese man is all like, you know what? Let's have peace. I
just love the weird things that go on with their shirts. Like the weird symbols that are on every single human being shirts nowadays. I'm like, what is up with that?
Apparently it's meant to be a future version of the Chinese alphabet.
I don't know, but why are they all wearing shirts like that? Why are all of them?
I'm unsure. Maybe it's like respect to Chen's heritage, maybe? Because they all work for him.
I know, but it's just it messes with my brain.
Well, all I have to say to that is the 60s.
Yeah,
that's all I have to say to that. The 60s and science fiction was a very strange time for attire, especially future attire and future space attire the most.
Yes.
So our boy Brett Vian, he is kind of a giant douche lord when we meet him. For reasons unknown, he decides to aggressively take the Doctor's ship from him, which is hilarious because the Doctor just spends the whole time just trolling him. It's amazing. The Doctor's like, and I love when he has that moment in the forest where he's just laughing about how much he's just trolled Brett. He's just having a good old giggle to himself, and he's just like, man, Brett's in for some crazy stuff. And I love when Katarina's like, are you a god as well? And then Brett's just like, I don't know what's going on here, guys.
Too many drugs.
Hey, what I love though is Brett has a Batman utility belt. He has the cure in his Batman belt. Can't say many Doctor Who episodes have had that cop out before, where somebody turns up with Batman's utility belt. But I'm glad Brett Vian does, and it's Nicholas Courtney. If Nicholas Courtney told me he owned a unicorn, I'd believe him. He's Nicholas Courtney. So
if the Brigadier had a Batman utility belt, we would respect that.
I would say Batman copied him, even though I know Batman came out like 30 years before Doctor Who started. But I'd be like, you know what? In my mind, Doctor Who did it first.
Yeah.
So Maverick Chen ends up landing on Kimball to join the Galactic Alliance. I still love the design of all of these guys. I know I harped on about it last Whoscussion, but that still doesn't change my ideals. I absolutely love the design. But
my favorite one out of all the council members is the one that just has like black sponges all over his body. It's just like these black orbs all over him. I'm just like, what are you? Like, are you a couch? Like, are you trying to be like a modern couch? If he like knelt down, you could sit on him and it would be comfortable.
Well, he's meant to be reptilian, but it does look like they've just cut some like tennis balls up and then just coated them black and was just like, you know what? Let's stick this on a bald man and he'll look like an alien. You know what? It's the 60s. It's low budget television. I'm just going to accept it. Though if somebody tried doing that in modern Who, I don't know how I'd feel about that.
If we saw that particular alien come back,
yeah.
It would be fantastic if they were legitimately that.
Yeah, and I could imagine like the Doctor's just okay with it, and everybody else is just looking at the alien, then back at the Doctor, then back at the alien, being like, "Am I in a theme park?"
Or like the companion like goes up and like pokes.
Yeah, just like just
like,
so
Doctor,
confused
what is
about
this?
the situation. My favorite in a design that actually would still hold up in modern television is still that big being that never speaks. It's just got golden shining eyes and it's black, and it's just and I love how it's got a crown at the end of its like elongated head. It's like, I'm a king. I'm never going to explain where I'm a king of, but I'm a king. And I can't talk, so I don't know how I'm having this conversation right now. His race, they never actually mention what they brought to the table. Like the one that has the spherical sponges, and the one that has, I'm guessing it's like extra skin flapping off his face.
Oh yeah, like the weird like.
Trantis.
It looks like
that was his name, Trantis.
Yeah. He looked like Spike from the X-Men, like had some bad acne going on.
Oh yes, there we go.
That's kind of what it looked like, because it looked like there were like teeth that had outgrown the face, sort of like.
Oh, that could be it. It could be additional calcium.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Whoscussion canon. You heard it right here. So Brett Vion ends up teaming up with the TARDIS crew, and fully realizes that Marek Chen, who's the leader of all, is actually a giant douche nozzle. And they decide to take the 111 spaceship, and they leave the TARDIS. I believe that's when episode 1 finishes. They've left the TARDIS like on Kimball. The Doctor's just like, yeah, we'll just leave it here, and continue having the rest of this very, very, very long story arc play out. Well,
the Doctor sees the Daleks have found the TARDIS, and he's sort of just like, well, I ain't gonna try and mess with that.
Yeah.
So I'll be back for you.
So the Nightmare Begins finishes pretty much with that, and we go into Day of Armageddon, episode 2, in the story arc of the Daleks' master plan. So the Daleks try to flamethrower their way into the TARDIS?
I guess so.
When I saw that, I was just like, how like a behind the scenes look at that. How dangerous would it have been to be in a studio in Limewood in London,
shooting flames
at a wooden box, in a room completely chock-a-block with plastic plants, and you as a human being are inside the prop that's got flame coming out of the end of it? I don't know how I'd feel, and I have to say, they've got some big cojones, the guys inside the Daleks. Hey guys, we need you to just shoot flames out of the end of the Dalek stick. Oh yeah, okay. I mean, like, the 60s was a magical time.
It was. Those plants were probably not plastic and were actually marijuana.
Guys, I think we should just flame the TARDIS. They see, what's it? How do they see? They see Zephon, right? Is that his name? The guy in the hood that you never see the face of until like way later on. And I like this guy because he's just talking smack to Chen, and Chen's just
Yeah,
talking smack
he's
back to
real
him.
good.
It's just so great. Chen's just like, you guys offered nothing. And Zephyr's like, whatever. All you got is a full M of Tyranium. And I love how many times Maverick Chen makes sure to remind people that he has a full
Was the
M
one
of
that,
Tyranium.
that I'm the one who got the full M
Yeah,
of
yeah.
tyranny.
It took 50 years
And
to mine.
And then, like, most people are just like, so what? It's just a precious metal. And he's
Yeah.
like, the only place you can get it is in my solar system. It's like, well, we probably would have done it better, except we don't have it in our solar system.
And we would have done it faster than 50 years.
Yeah.
And what I like about this this entire plan is that the fact that the only reason the Daleks want to do this is because they're still really angry about a war they lost 3,000 years ago. That's a hell of a long time to hold a grudge. And the thing is, they're about to get their asses handed to them by the same guy who defeated them 3,000 years ago.
Yes, they
It's
are.
so great. The First Doctor's just like, I'm the same incarnation, brother.
And you're gonna get red.
So Zephon of the Fifth Galaxy. I love that about classic Who, especially William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton's run. Is like they talk about like numbered different galaxies and how like Earth's galaxy is called the solar system. And I was just like, man, they really needed some like science advisors because a solar system is just like it's just a whole bunch of planets orbiting a sun.
Yeah.
Anywhere there's a solar system, not just Earth.
I had a feeling that like when I was watching this, and I was pretty sure that what he was talking about was just the Sol system, as in our sun. Call it Sol.
Gallifrey calls it that as well. They call it the Sol system. So
Yeah,
I
so
suppose if they ever reanimate this episode, they should just like edit the last part of that syllable off and then make it the Sol system.
Or even just like just keep calling it the solar system, because there's our extension of Sol is solar. That's what the humans call it. But then just have like a little line of dialogue is them explaining that it's just Earth and its planets, not the whole galaxy.
Yeah, not the actual descriptive noun of a solar system.
Yeah.
So Stephen and Katarina, who none of her episodes exist. I found that so sad about watching Katarina. She's got no actual existing footage.
Yeah. We got lots of pictures of her, though.
Yeah, we got lots of pictures of her. And thanks to Loose Cannon, they've been put into different situations. I love some of the editing Loose Cannon did, especially since they released their stuff on VHS.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this looks good for VHS, except for episode 5, maybe. But
yeah, that was a bit.
That was a bit sort of.
I love the way that they tried to like animate the pictures, especially when there's like Daleks and stuff involved.
Yeah, because they use CGI, which I thought was cool.
Well, they light up the lights on the sides when they're talking.
Yeah, definitely.
And like do like close-ups on people, and then like move the camera out as well. It's like you're trying really hard, but it would be better if this is just animated.
Yeah, it's a pity they didn't have the budget back then, because we would just have animated Doctor Who by now. Man, we should go. That's what I do with a time machine. Go back. Actually, wouldn't I just go back and stop BBC from burning them?
Yeah, that's probably the best.
That's actually a lot better. Anyway, getting back to the actual events of Doctor Who, and not my hypothetical events of Doctor Who. They beat up Zephon and take his hood, and this is the strangest part. Stephen puts on Zephon's feet.
Yes.
Because Zephon's not wearing shoes. That's his skin.
Yep.
What? Did he just have an extra layer of skin just for Stephen to peel off? Stephen's like, oh, hang on, I know this species. Just peel off his feet. There he goes, got an extra pair of feet. The doctor's like, how do you even know that? Dude, I did some crazy stuff while I was on Mekness, alright? So, I still don't understand that.
I just do things, alright?
So you like when I saw Stephen putting on Zephon's feet, my mind blew up. I was just like, I don't understand how that's possible. And later on, when Zephon returns to the fray, he's got his feet back on. I'm like, hang on, didn't Stephen just literally take your feet skin? So I've never read the novelization of this, and I might read it just to see if they explain it. The novelization usually explains like random things that take place on screen, but I kind of hope they don't.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna accept that these creatures just like grow skin back real quickly.
Yep.
And they
Or they grow their feet back. They have like, feet they can take on and off, and then it grows back.
They have feet shoes.
They're the reason why we don't have sweatshops anymore, because we just grow them through their feet.
Just grow them out. We gave our feet to your people of Earth. And then the camera pans down to Mavic Chen's feet, and he's wearing some Zephyr shoes. He's like, yes, these are some cool kicks, but I'm still going to destroy you. But it's, oh man, it's just that scene will be forever burned into my mind. It's just like, it's so strange. And so the Doctor does, I think, one of my favourite things is when he wears that hood. It's just so cool. That image of the first Doctor just like drenched in this hood. It's almost like something that like some like, you know, those cool kids that were really good at drawing that like didn't speak to anyone in high school. That's their interpretation of the first Doctor. And one of them obviously jumped back in time. They jumped the time track, went back there, and gave that promotional art to Terry Nation. Like, this is what the Doctor should look like. Because that's just what it looks like to me. It's someone's really, really cool fan art that just got to be on the show. And so the Doctor's disguised as Zephyr, which makes me wonder why Stephen put on Zephyr's feet. I just
because the shoes. Yep, that's why.
That's why. He just wanted something cool.
The cool kicks, yep.
And so this is when the Doctor finds out about the
Terranium.
The Terranium and the Time Destructor. And then there's a whole bunch of confusion, and the Doctor steals it.
Yes,
which
he does.
It's pretty amazing. And I believe at this time we lead into Devil's Planet, which is the third episode here, and Zephon ends up getting himself killed because the Daleks are like, dude, you are totally the reason the Tyranium got stolen. And Zephon's just like, but they're from Earth. Why is... somebody believe me.
Yep. It's like, but he was wearing your clothes. Like, he stole them from... What?
No, he must be from your planet. Dude, what am I not wearing currently? The thing the guy stole.
And not my shoes.
Yeah. Do you have any idea how long this shit takes to grow? 10 minutes, man. So he ends up getting a highway to No Longer Alive. And Brett ends up finding the recording that Corey was trying to send to Earth at the end of Mission to the Unknown. And Brett is so disillusioned now because he's just like, I can't believe the guy who's given Earth peace for 25 years is actually planning this all-out destruction of humanity. Like, what is even running through Chen's mind? So...
He wants to be controller of the universe, like the Daleks.
Yeah, yes. Yes, he does. And so... I love how the Daleks like just are trying desperately to just like get their plans in play, but these organic life forms keep ruining their day. They're like, why can't you guys just follow instructions? Give us the
Why
Tyranium.
are you guys good?
And just chill, all right? But no, one of you guys is highly responsible. We're blaming you, by the way, Zephyr. I'm currently dying. Exterminate. You're currently dead. And and so they zip off, and they zip off in Mavic Chen's 111 spaceship, and the Daleks end up sending it off to a prison planet called Desperus. Desperus, was it? Hang on.
Yes.
Yes, it was Desperus. And which is a really cool name for a planet, especially a prison planet. It sounds awesome. I reckon Riddick was probably there at one point. Headcanon.
Probably.
So this planet has essentially become governed by this one prisoner. And this meek little weakling who always tries to gain the upper hand is constantly getting destroyed, basically. And he's like, man, I really want to have a woman. They've become a caveman society, essentially. And the Doctor ends up, while they're on Desperate, trying to get them off it, and he ends up creating this energy field on the stairs to stop the prisoners from getting in. But then one of them does. And it's the weakling guy. And he's like, I've made it on! He probably thinks he's the coolest guy. And he's like, oh, I need you to take me to Planet Kemble. And they're like, we can't take you to Planet Kemble because the Daleks are there. He's like, oh, who are the Daleks? They sound awesome. And I'm just like, man, how dumb is this guy? Surely in school they would have been teaching the Daleks came and wrecked everybody's cool stuff 3,000 years ago. Like,
yeah, but this guy's a convict.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. He's probably not the sharpest tool in the shed, and he's a fraidy cat. And he's just like, oh, the Daleks will be my friend. And then Katarina does something that's super ballsy. She grabs the guy and runs into the airlock, and she has no idea what's going on, but she thinks it's going to protect the Doctor because she thinks the Doctor is taking her to heaven. And then the episode ends, and we're brought into the traitors.
Yes.
And it starts off in, I think, quite possibly one of the most alarming ways, and I can actually absolutely see why this entire serial, the Daleks Master Plan, was actually banned in Australia.
This episode got really dark really quickly.
It starts off, Katarina ends up ejecting herself into space.
Yep. Taking Kirkson with her.
Yeah, so, wow, man. It just...
Yeah.
Wow. That escalated quickly. And Katarina is the first companion in Doctor Who history to die. And she doesn't die in a particularly nice way. She doesn't get it quick and clean like a companion we'll talk about in later episodes of Whoscussion. She suffocates in the vacuum of space.
Wow. She would have probably actually mind exploded. Yeah,
died instantly.
Almost. Yeah. It would have been relatively instant. It still would have probably hurt a hell of a lot.
Yes, but in her last seconds of being alive. And I just that image of her floating in space that they for some reason painstakingly recreated with CGI.
I know. What?
I was just like, out of all the things to recreate in CGI, her floating dead in space is pretty dark, bro.
Yeah, it was. I was
just like, whoa. I was just like, it's cool that you've recreated it, but
you probably shouldn't.
Yeah. She's floating dead in space, and they linger on that for ages because obviously in the original script that's meant to have shown her floating. And I was just like, BBC, the reason this story doesn't really exist anymore is because you made this shit super dark.
And the Stephen and Doctor are like, whoa.
and then the Doctor just has that moment where he looks off and he's just like, she's with her gods now. And I love that. That's something I hate about New Who is they always have that that over dramatic reaction to death, which doesn't happen in real life. I mean, we're sad when it happens, but we don't have this over dramatic TV presence about it. Classic Who treats death a lot more realistically, and I just love that the Doctor has that moment of reflection where he's just like, she did it to save us. And essentially, for her, it would have been like a way of, I suppose, repention for her sins, maybe. And she just accepts it, and she's gone to a greater place. And so the Doctor is like, "Look, we need to go to Earth to warn everybody." And then the Mavic Chen's like, "Look, I need to go to Earth before it all gets out of hand." And they introduce this character. I don't know, what the heck was his name?
Is that the bald guy?
Yeah, I loved him. I loved him.
Oh man, he is actually fantastic.
He is amazing.
One thing that I really want to point out is in a lot of the still shots that we have of him, he looks a lot like he's Vladimir Putin that's bald.
Yeah.
And it's so many of the still shots, I'm just like, is that Putin? What is that? It's so spot on that I just could not help myself thinking that. I mean, once you get into it being actually live action, some of the live action ones that still exist, you can tell that it's very much a different person, but the still shots are just just him. It's just Putin.
What I love about it is you get the sense that this guy has groomed Chen.
Mm.
It's pretty intense. Like Chen obeys this man,
Mm.
and like when Chen tries to get uppity with him, the guy just sort of is like, "Hey Chen, you need to remember, bro, this is for our future, not your personal future, ours." And you can see that like Terry Nation is so good at writing dialogue and at writing exposition as well. And I really wish that he was responsible for this whole arc. But he unfortunately was very, very busy with another famous British TV series that started the career of Brian Blessed, actually, called Z-Cars. So he could only do an outline for the last 6 episodes, and it unfortunately shows when we get to it. So in this, we get Chen telling. Is it this episode? Is this the episode when Sarah gets brought in?
Yes.
Yes,
When he tells Sarah that Brett is the person who is the
is with the Daleks, eh?
well, no, he doesn't actually tell her about the Daleks at this point. She's unaware that they're actually part of this. He just tells her that Brett is a traitor.
Oh yeah,
and
traitor.
Is working with 2 unidentified men to sort of wreck the peace of Earth. And she's just like, well, I better believe you. I'm gonna go kill him.
Yeah, which is intense
And
because that's her brother.
yeah, that is her brother, which we don't find out till later. But
yeah, whoa, man. Man, this episode there's so much stuff happens. So the doctor ends up losing another companion. So Brett meets his end. And I mean, he's only been with the Doctor for 4 episodes, but it's still pretty intense. He ends up losing his second companion in the story. And so Brett is killed off by his own sister, unfortunately. And that ends episode 4 of The Traders, basically. But episode 5 counterplot is amazing because Sarah runs into the room that Stephen and the Doctor are hiding in. And she's all
it's a teleportation room.
She's all like, freeze! And the Doctor's like, hey, this looks like a transmitter filled with and they start getting pulled through space. And I love like how everybody's in pain, and the Doctor's just like, he's like, he doesn't look like he's had a very good day. And then
it's like, oh no.
And then what's his name? What's his name? Is it Drexter? What is the name of it? Carlton. That's his name. Carlton, the bald fella, is like to the scientists who were doing the experiment that sent the Doctor and them off. He's like, hey, what just happened? And they're like, oh, we sent our mice to another planet.
We just teleported our mice to another planet. And he's just like, what?
Why didn't you stop when we walked in here? And he's like, well, A, our experiment was too far ahead, and B, what? You just walked in while we were doing stuff. I'm not going to just listen to you randomly. And Carlton's not impressed. He's like, hey, look, Navik Chen wants those people. You need to get them back as quick as you can. And they're like, we can't do that.
We cannot do that.
That is physically impossible. And
it is a one-way ticket.
and Carlton's like, what planet did they go to? Oh, planet Mirror. Our scan said it's uninhabited. Well, their scans aren't correct.
No, they are very much not. But I can understand why they wouldn't be correct, especially if they were using light-based detection.
Yeah, exactly. So these beasts that are invisible end up.
It's invisible. 6 foot tall, invisible monsters that I'm just imagining are like big clawed, like evilness that someone actually did do a drawing of, but then they were like, we cannot create this.
Invisible.
They're invisible now.
Terry Nation was probably like, and they got this and this, and like, oh man, David Whitfield, can you just re-edit that, please? Because to make them invisible, because that's far too expensive. Yep. And Myra is surprise, another forest planet.
Yeah, so many forest planets.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I wonder if it's just the same set as Kemble.
Especially considering it's like really close to Kemble.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like almost in the same system.
Also, the Doctor knows knows the planet Myra, and he knows that there's invisible beings. So either him and Susan went here during the beginning arc, or they learn about it in the Time Lord Academy. I
Maybe.
can see it being the latter more than the former, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, invisible creatures doesn't seem like they would be very common around the universe. So I imagine that that the Time Lords would have learned about that sort of stuff. Makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if they're like, if you ever come into contact with these things, if you're on a reconnaissance mission for the Silencio Intervention Agency, they will end your life.
Watch out for them.
So I love how the Doctor's like, invisible beings, we're on the planet Myra. Oh, yes. And he's just like, oh, and then I love that realization on William Hartnell's face. He's like, oh, I should totally go save my companions now. Don't want to lose a third one.
Yes.
And I love how they're called the Visians because they're invisible. Yep. I was just like, oh, I love the 60s so much. And so the Doctor ends up oh man, how do they get out of this situation? Is this the one where he steals the Dalek ship, right?
Yeah, he distracts the guarding Dalek by saying he's going to give them the tranium, and then Stephen puts mud on its eye stalk.
Awesome.
Absolutely great way to disable the Dalek. That's how you do it.
Wow, that's amazing. And so we're off. We're leaving Planet Myra, and we finish Counterplot, and we start up with Coronis of the Sun. And this is the last episode that's fully written by Terry Nation. Oh man, I wish you stayed, brother. And the invisible creatures start attacking the Daleks at the beginning of this, and they send a message back to Kimball, and they're like, "Hey, we need more reinforcements." And then the Doctor steals their ship, and and so Chen arrives back on Kimball, and he's all like,
I sent them there on purpose.
Yeah, that was the whole reason. Oh, and we've got the Tyranium core that I'm pretty certain is the real one. We shouldn't do any preliminary tests. We should just accept this is the real one.
Yep.
But the Doctor's done the old kerfuffle, and he's gone ahead and given them a wrong Tyranium core. I want to know where he had this random time destructor core like simulator lying around. It's so random.
No, wait. I think that comes on later after he steals the Dalek ship. So I think he stole it from the Dalek ship. I think they would have had a spare one lying around.
No, because he builds it.
Does he?
It. Yeah, but that's why Sarah and Stephen wear those visors.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so the Doctor builds this fake Tyranium core, and I'm just like, that's actually amazing. What? So they end up getting back to Kimball, and I believe this is where the trade happens.
Yeah, well, they give them the fake.
When they give them the fake Tyranium core. Wow, man, so much stuff is just happening in this story arc. And the Doctor ends up accidentally turning Stephen into an energy shield, which is weird. Because Stephen ends up touching the fake Tyranium core, and this I don't understand how. And I'm looking at the wiki page right now, and I still don't know how. Stephen's turned into an energy shield that can survive miraculously one Dalek bolt. I'm just like, you know what? I have a sneaking suspicion that wasn't written by Terry Nation.
Yeah, it sounds like they just wanted let's have Stephen get hit by a Dalek bolt, so people freak out about it, and we'll explain it back here with him just getting shocked a bit.
Yeah.
That doesn't quite work. I mean,
so they end up doing the trade, and then the Daleks are like, "Oh, we're going to double cross you." Oh, surprise, surprise! Stephen's the force field, and they end up getting inside the TARDIS alive. And then Stephen gets snapped out of that daze he was in. That I don't have words. So we finish this, and then we get on to the first ever Doctor Who Christmas special called The Feast of Stephen, which is episode 7 here. And just what is happening?
This is where it gets really, really weird.
So David Whitfield takes over, and man, that guy was on some good drugs back in the 60s because just the Doctor says that this is one of my most favourite things, is I'm guessing this guy didn't really like London very much, where the
Yep.
Doctor is worried that the atmosphere outside is too polluted for humans to breathe. And he
Yep.
walks outside and it's London.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, that's why."
It's whew, that's
It's not China, but it's London.
yeah. So he's just like, okay, all right, and they end up getting involved in some police investigation because they think that the Doctor's a vagrant.
Yeah.
And then Stephen dresses up as a police officer and manages to convince them that the Doctor's not a vagrant. They find out it's Christmas Day, and then they leave the police station. Sarah gets angry at this police officer and punches him in the dick and balls, and then they run into the TARDIS, and just that. Oh, what? And then they end up in 1920s Hollywood during the silent film period.
Yep, and meet up with Charlie Chaplin.
And meet up with Charlie Chaplin, and then they meet one of the Marx brothers, who the Marx brothers weren't really a thing in the silent era, so that was really weird. And then he's like, "Oh, do you know why nobody's going to find this funny?" And then William Hartnell's just like, "Oh, sorry, the first Doctor, as played by William Hartnell, is like, oh, it's because Charlie Chaplin's already done it." And then she's like, "Yeah, that's why." And then this one guy thinks that Stephen's like the next action star. Because Stephen thinks that this guy's a real like a real villain that they see on the set of this movie, and Stephen beats the shit out of him. And the guy's like, "Oh, yo, you are the next up and coming action hero. I want you to be in my movie." And he runs away. And so they like all run away, and the Doctor, Sarah, and Stephen are so frightened of the experience they just had. They have no idea what it was. They think it's some sort of alien world. No, it was just 1920s Hollywood, and you're in a very, very busy studio, which I'm guessing was MGM. And I'm just like, what just took place? And then the strangest thing in Doctor Who history happens. The Doctor looks at the camera and says, "In universe, in canon, Merry Christmas to everybody at home."
Yeah.
Now,
that's the thing that happens.
That's the thing that happens. I've read 2 comics that both say that he was saying Merry Christmas to Gallifrey to try and fix that. But you know what?
Because what I think is that he was like almost a step behind in his brain. He realized that he was previously in 1960s Christmas Day. Once he'd got to 1920s, not Christmas Day, looked into a movie camera that they had and was like, "Happy Christmas to all of you at home." Not realizing that he was no longer in the Christmas time.
This maybe. There we go. We'll pop that in the republished version of the Feast of Stephen. But it's so weird. And I'm just like, holy crap, this actually happens. And we won't get a moment like this until Tom Baker, and I can't wait for us when we get to that, because it is the strangest. Tom Baker looks directly at the camera, and you just know that he's not the 4th Doctor in this shot. He's Tom Baker, and then he comes back to being the 4th Doctor in the very next scene. It is superb. So that's the end of the Feast of Stephen. So we finished episode 7, and it just, oh man, David Whitfield. So David Whitfield's taken over, and later on he'll get kicked off for a Dennis Spooner, because Dennis Spooner is a significantly better writer of Doctor Who. And we end up on an episode called Volcano. Now, a little bits of Terry Nation's original script come back, where Chen, who wasn't in the last episode, by the way, is having a good old conversation with Trantis and Salation, two of the people who are behind this conglomerate of the Daleks and other galaxies. And then the Daleks test the Time Destructor on Trantis. Wow. And then after that, a very impressive scene, they find out that it's not real, and so the Daleks go to Skaro. Look, we need to talk to Skaro because we need a time machine, because we need to find the Doctor right fucking now. And so they are pissed, and they kill Trantis. They're like,
I really want to know. I really want to know what the Time Destructor actually does. I really want to know. I really hope that its point is to disintegrate someone's timeline to stop them from ever have existing, or at least the particles that are currently in them to never have existed in the first place.
At the end of the story arc, we do find out what the Time Destructor does, and they use it again in the first season of John Hurt's War Doctor run in Big Finish, which everybody should listen to, by the way. So the Time Destructor, we do find out what it does in the end, and
I guess step up.
yeah. So this is when David Whitfield's writing comes back, and we end up in a cricket match in London, and two commentators talk about a cricket match.
And then talking about the TARDIS ending up on the pitch.
Yeah, it's what was happening here? They're just trying to stretch Terry Nation's material, essentially. But the thing is, they had just used Terry Nation's material, this would be the penultimate Doctor Who story. But because of Feast of Stephen and this random cricket match, which, by the way, the first Doctor doesn't know what cricket is.
Which is particularly weird, considering one of his incarnations wears a cricket outfit.
Though in saying that, the third Doctor ends up living on Earth for 5 years. So he would have learned about cricket while he was living on Earth.
It's kind of one of the biggest England
Yeah, I know. So even when he was living in I.M. Foreman's junkyard, he should have known. But anyways, glossing over that very bizarre fact, we end up meeting Peter Butterworth as the monk again. I love Peter Butterworth so much. I'm so glad that the first time we meet a rival Time Traveller in the 60s, he isn't evil, and he's just sort of this like goofball who's like just goofing around in time. It's so great. And so he doesn't really explain to the Doctor how he's fixed his TARDIS, but he's really, really grumpy, and he's found the Doctor because the Doctor thinks that the Daleks are the ones chasing him through the time vortex, but it's actually the monk. And I love how the monk goes to throw that rock down at the Doctor, and then Sarah sees him, and he like throws the rock away, and he goes, "Oh, hello, Doctor. A long time no see. I wasn't trying to brutally murder you with this rock. You would have just regenerated anyway." And so.
The monk.
Yeah, the monk. He's just like so the monk. This monk segment, I feel like, was written by Dennis Spooner more than David Whitfield, because right after they finish talking to the monk, and the Doctor has to use his signet ring to fix the TARDIS lock. It's not the first time he's done that. So it's not just random something they pulled out of their bum. The Doctor has done this in the past, used the signet ring to control the TARDIS, but. In this one, they explain it that he uses the rays of Tygus' sun to power the signet ring.
Yep, totally makes sense.
I'll roll with it. I mean, have you read Superman comics from the 60s? It's stranger.
They are solar engineers.
Oh, this is true. Yes, this is solar engineers. And the Doctor did graduate with honours in thermodynamics. So there you go. And so the Doctor ends up leaving and then crash landing into a New Year's Eve party.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. And then the Doctor's like, I'm not entirely sure what's going on. So that would make this a New Year's Eve special.
Probably, yeah.
Which I don't think we get another New Year's Eve special until David Tennant.
Yeah, at least he didn't say,
yeah.
To all of you at home.
Happy New Year to everybody at home. And then Terry Nation's script bleeds back in with Kemble, and the Daleks have actually brought their variation of the TARDIS. And they're like, okay, let's go. So they end up hunting the Doctor through time to Giza while the three pyramids are being built, because David Whitfield.
Totally. Yep. Because that's a thing that happens. Yep.
Yeah. Which, like, this so could have been saved for its own episode. It's just, oh man, it's David Whitfield, you needed to not do drugs in the 60s. It's just, Maverick Chen's just sort of there. He doesn't really do anything. The Daleks.
He's having a good time.
He's having a good time. He's just like, look, they get the real Tyranium core. Oh no, it's not this one. It's a follow-up that happens, actually. They get the real Tyranium core. So in this episode, it's just basically the Benny Hill show. If the Benny Hill show didn't have the background music and it was a lot slower,
And had Egyptians in it.
Yeah, it had Egyptians in it. And so the Egyptians try to fight the Daleks, and the Egyptians seem, which is what I thought was really interesting, and actually I think it's very reflective of how the Egyptians were, because they were very technological minded, is they didn't treat the Daleks as some sort of deities or some sort of supernatural beings. They're like, these things are mortal.
Yeah, they were just like, these are things,
Yeah.
so we'll block them up with stone.
Yeah, and so the Doctor ends up stealing the monk's directional unit, and turning the monk's TARDIS into a motorcycle and a World War II tank, and then a police box.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I can see
Where he's messing
why.
with his chameleon circuit.
Yeah, I can see why the Doctor's done that to try and throw the Daleks off the trail. But after this this story finishes and we go into Escape Switch episode, which is episode 10, the monk fixes his chameleon circuit like instantaneously. So it was completely pointless. I don't understand it. It was just, man, David Whitfield.
I have a feeling that in that case, the Doctor assumed that it was one of those technical difficulties that most Time Lords wouldn't bother with, considering it's one that he doesn't bother with.
Yeah.
Like, he hasn't bothered about it since it happened. So I thought he would like leave it like that so that the Daleks would follow him. But the monk actually was creative in it, or just he thought about it enough to actually change it back.
Yeah,
you know,
and fix it.
So, like, I imagine other Time Lords probably wouldn't have done that either. I imagine they would have been like, "Let's just make a chameleon circuit. It's not like I care."
Yeah.
So,
the Egyptians turn up with reinforcements. And they end up being the reason that the TARDIS crew managed to get back to the TARDIS pretty much unscathed. They have given up the Tyranium core because the Doctor had to save the lives of his companions, because they had been captured, along with Peter Butterworth as the monk. He is so great. I love Peter Butterworth, and his son looks crazy like him. So if they want to bring back the monk, I'd hire Tyler Butterworth, man. He looks like his dad. Just do it. Hurry up right now, Chris Turnbull. Hurry up.
Well, you don't even need to. Like, you can easily have the monk come back as anybody else, considering he's also a Time Lord.
This is true, but the thing is that at the end of this episode, Escape Switch, the Doctor has made it so that the monk's just roaming around for ages. And since Tyler looks older than his dad looked in the story arc, you could just make him an older first incarnation of the monk. I'd be okay with that. Like, oh, hey, I never died in the war. I was just stuck traveling aimlessly because of you.
Yeah, actually, that would make a whole lot of sense.
That would be so cool.
Although they have canonized the fact that all other Time Lords are like gone. But I mean, like, it could have easily been explained. Like, while I was running away from the Daleks, they destroyed something or other, and I ended up stuck outside of the universe for like this many years or so.
Yeah. Well,
that would actually be a really cool way for him to come back.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he has already regenerated in Big Finish. That's the only thing.
He has regenerated in?
Yeah, he fights the 8th Doctor in a new incarnation.
Big Finish. Come on.
Yeah, Big Finish, man. Stop being so good at your job.
Sometimes you're too good.
Yeah, sometimes you're just actually amazing at your job. Just calm down, right? Calm down. And so thankfully, that is all of David Whitfield's stuff gone. It's over.
Yeah.
Dennis Spooner comes in, and I'm pretty certain it was BBC going, we need to fix the ratings.
Things are going bad right now.
We need to fix that now. So Dennis Spooner comes in and he puts stuff back on track. He makes it Terry Nation's script again, basically. And so we come to the end in the Abandoned Planet, episode 11 of the Dalek Master Plan. The monk is stuck traveling out, and he can't really do anything. The TARDIS crew. The Doctor uses the dimensional unit to get them back to Kemble, and that's the only time it works, which I'm so happy about, because it means the Doctor can just not know where he's going again. I was really worried that they were going to do that, and I feel that was Dennis Spooner who did that, because I think Terry Nation had written it specifically, the Doctor's fixed his TARDIS, and Dennis Spooner was like, don't do that, because that will suck. Alright, done. Because it does. It sucks when the Doctor can travel. Like, that's one thing I don't like about New Who, is the Doctor, like, knows what he's doing. And so...
Yeah. is that they slowly. I like the fact that it was slowly given to him the ability to pilot the TARDIS.
Yeah,
Is that
and
it wasn't?
in the 10 Doctors, he gets given it by the Time Lords, but then
Yeah.
it just doesn't exist when the Fourth Doctor comes in, especially when he turns on the randomizers. Anyway, we'll get to that later on.
Yeah,
But
the red.
so the Galactic Council end up getting put in prison. I don't know why the Daleks didn't just kill them, considering they served no purpose, but that's probably Dennis Spooner going, I kind of want this episode to be aired in Australia. So so they end up sneaking back in to the Dalek City. No one knows where the Doctor is. He's gone off on his own mish. It's just random. The Doctor just goes bloop, and then just isn't in this episode.
He's just like, I don't want to be in this.
Yeah, he's just like, no.
You guys do.
Yeah, just sort that out. And so the delegates all zip off, and then Merrick Chen decides to kill him, pretend he killed himself, which is so random. I'm like, what is this? What does this actually achieve? Like, in the broad scheme of things, what does this achieve? It achieves nothing. Because Chen, like, straight after he's pretended he's killed himself, he rocks over and he's just like, I'm not dead. And I'm like, who are you fooling? Because the other guys don't care if you're dead or alive. So, like, who does that benefit? And I think Dennis Spooner must have seen that in Terry Nation's original script and gone, how do I fix this? And then just did it.
Yep. That's absolutely it. Yep.
And so this episode ends with the other ones zipping off and going, we need to stop the Dalek Empire from rising, even though we're actually 100% responsible for it rising in the first place. Sorry, our bad universe. And Chen's got Sarah and Stephen at gunpoint. Chen thinks he's the man and tells the Daleks that he's awesome, and then the Daleks do some of the coldest stuff, and I wish this footage still exists, because the way it's described on screen and the way they use stills, it's amazing. He's like, listen to me, and he still thinks he's the man. He still thinks he's in charge of this mission, and the Daleks just don't say anything. They just look at him.
Yep.
And I love it, and he's just like, your insubordination will be responded with only one thing, and he tries to kill the Dalek Supreme, and the Dalek Supreme just looks at him, and he's like, and then he like drops his gun and runs like a little bitch. He just guns it.
Yep.
And I love how the Daleks just don't really say anything, and the Dalek Supreme is just like, eliminate him.
Yep.
And then they leave to go kill him. And then, while they're distracted with that, the Doctor turns up and is like, oh, hey, can you guys just piss off back to the TARDIS because I'm going to turn the Time Destructor? And like, where the hell have you been? He goes, that doesn't even matter right now. Please take the TARDIS key and go.
I'm just awesome, all right?
Yeah, I'm just here. So he turns on the Time Destructor, and the Dalek Supreme comes back into the control room, and he's like, oh, okay. And the Doctor's like, hey, we're going to go now, and you can't do anything about it. And the Dalek Supreme's just like, right, this sucks. We can't shoot him because the Time Destructor will completely annihilate us. So he lets the Doctor gap it, and then he's just like, okay, guys, you need to go get it back, but can you get it back without shooting it? Is that, like, okay? And the Daleks are like, oh, we'll give it a go. And then they leave. And then the Doctor has told his companions to leave because the Time Destructor's turned on. The Time Destructor is essentially accelerating the half-life of atoms.
Yes.
So everything is disintegrating. It's aging insanely rapidly. And the Doctor has just told everybody to gap it. Now, Sarah, having way bigger balls than Stephen. Seriously, Stephen has been in the shadows since he's been a companion. Which is weird, because it was like he's meant to be like a soldier from the future. It's insane. So he's been in the shadows, and Sarah decides that she's got way bigger cojones than him, and goes back to save the Doctor, and inadvertently becomes the third and final companion of this story arc to be killed.
Many.
And she's killed, like, her and Katarina have a hero's death. Actually, Brett kind of does as well, because he's saving the other two. So all three of the companions that die in this actually have a hero's death. And
although
Sarah's
this does mean that this is the end of the line of Lethbridge Stewart.
Yeah.
Unless Brett had children.
Yeah, unless Brett had children, this is the end of the Lethbridge Stewart family tree. Yeah, that's a good point. So Sarah comes back and she helps the Doctor, because the Doctor is super struggling. Like, this is putting so much of a strain on his first incarnation, and for me explains why he dies of old age. For me, like in my heart of hearts, this absolutely explains it. Because after this he becomes poorly, and I know it's in real life because William Hartnell was dying. while he was
Yeah.
filming Doctor Who, but you can put it in the actual canon of the show. It's because of the time
Because
destructor.
of this moment.
And so the half-life of his atoms are being accelerated, and it starts happening to Sarah. And he's like, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "Oh, I came back to save you." And so exactly. And so Sarah helps the Doctor pretty much carry his burden, and she dies for it. And she doesn't just like have a nice death; she doesn't just like pass away. She
Gets
ages.
old very quickly.
She ages to the point that her bones become dust before Stephen's eyes, because Stephen zips out and he's like, "Oh crap! What's going on?" And Stephen doesn't know how to turn off the time destructor, so he just like pushes a button and throws the time destructor away. It's like, I hope that turned that off. But what he doesn't know is he's actually insanely accelerated it. And so the Doctor wakes up and he's like pretty much like talking nonsense. He's not even really saying words except for "get back to the ship." And I love when he says that, because you can hear William Hartnell. And I really wish this footage survived, because I can totally tell from William Hartnell's voice he was giving that performance his goddamn all, because you can hear when he's like doing that yell of him being affected by the time destructor, like that sounds like someone is actually properly being murdered, man. He's like, "Ah!" And Stephen like runs into the TARDIS being a chicken horse, like he is in every episode since he was saved from Magnus. And the Doctor walks in and he's like not coherent, and he starts talking to Sarah, and then he like realizes that Sarah's not in the TARDIS, and he's like, "Where is Sarah?" And then Stephen doesn't even say anything; he just shakes his head.
It's like she's gone,
and he's just like, "Oh, well, I just saved the universe from the Daleks, so
that's something, I guess."
Yeah, this is a really bitter victory. I lost 3 companions, and Stephen like. He loses his cool, man. He's just like, "Man, Brett, Katarina, Sarah," and he's like, he's not having a good time. He's like, "Why did I even get off Meknus? Why did I leave Meknus? I was having a good time there, and then you showed up."
Yeah.
And the Doctor just sort of looks on, and he's just like,
"It's a waste. What a terrible waste."
Yeah, and he's just like, "We just got to keep on keeping on, man." And then it's over. The longest serial in Doctor Who history finishes on a very somber note, and it is so good, except for the David Whitfield pieces. I mean, it's not David Whitfield's fault, because they just like, "Hey, Terry Nation isn't here, and I know we just called you 2 hours ago, but you need to write a script." And when a man's given like 2 hours to write a script, man, he's gonna hand you this. That's gonna happen.
He's going to be like, "I'm going to take a whole lot of drugs and get this done."
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to do probably LSD, since it's the 60s, and I want to get this done now. And he does it. And the thing is, Dennis Spooner's brought on, and Dennis Spooner's work is better, but that's not fair, because Dennis was actually given more time.
Yeah.
And so all in all, I think without the David Whitfield random cutaways, for me, this is a near perfect story. And it makes the Daleks an actual threat. And that's the thing that like Modern Who doesn't do. The Daleks have never in Modern Who been a threat.
Well, not really, anyway. You never feel like they're that much of a threat.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the moment that they start showing up, the Doctor's got a plan at this point. Like, the first time they showed up in New Who was other than the singular Dalek that shows up.
Was that
which is actually the first time the Dalek shows up, the last of the Daleks, I think, at the time, the Ninth Doctor's actually afraid of them. And it actually seems like he legitimately is like, "Whoa, there's one Dalek left. If we don't stop it here and now, it's going to destroy Earth." Because that's how dangerous the Daleks are supposed to be.
Exactly.
But then, after that, it just seems like the Doctor's always got a way out after that.
The thing is,
like,
though,
he never seems to... Yeah.
With that story, it was written by Robert Sherman.
Yeah.
And Robert Sherman is the king of writing Dalek stories in the expanded universe.
Yes.
And I'm just like, why don't they just get him to write every Dalek story?
That would have been a smart idea.
Because the singular Dalek story with the Ninth Doctor is actually based on the Sixth Doctor story Jubilee.
Yes.
And trust me, it is way more messed up. It is way more messed up. The Doctor ends up living an alternate timeline where his sixth incarnation is not allowed to regen, and he ends up crippled in a wheelchair at the top of a tower for 600 years.
Makes sense.
and he's just like this bitter creature that's a Dalek pet, basically. It's
Fair
it,
enough.
it's pretty messed up, but yeah, and this and many of the classic Who stories. I mean, I can't say all classic Who Dalek stories they were threatening, because I mean,
Yeah.
have you seen the Sixth Doctor one? That was a bit weird. But yeah, classic Who, especially the '60s run, they always made sure that the Daleks were absolutely difficult to defeat. Because if you look at this, the Doctor has such a hard time trying to wrangle them in, and ends up basically almost forcing himself to regenerate to stop them.
Well, basically in this, he doesn't actually end up like fighting them at all. Like
Yeah.
every single time single time that he dealt with them, it was only temporary, and it was him running away.
Yeah.
So it was never exactly a victory for him. Like even at the end of it, he only just managed to get out alive himself,
Yeah.
as well as saving one, if not, considering he couldn't save all of his companions.
Yeah, losing 3 in one arc, man. Like, well done, First Doctor. Though in his
Admittedly-
defense, he was an old man, so...
Admittedly, he gained 2 of those.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So that's kind of fair enough. I mean, you could like just say that they weren't companions and just say that they were just like extras to the story rather than being actual companions. But
But they
still,
were. They filled the role. They travelled in the TARDIS, and they end up coming to the Doctor's aid because he tells them, we need to fight evil. And they're like, huh, that's a good point.
well, I mean, it's in their veins. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Alrighty, well...
But I can actually imagine that, like, something that their grandparents would have told them is that, like, a story passed down in generations is like, if a crazy man shows up in a box, he tells you that he needs you to save the universe, you goddamn do it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I love how, like, the First Doctor just wakes Sarah up. He's just like, look, I don't know what conditioning crap they give you back on Earth, but you need to wake right up. This isn't a fairy tale. These Daleks are here, and they're real.
And you killed your brother for this.
Yeah,
So you
exactly.
better shape right up.
You
right
gotta
now.
wake up, bro. Your government is corrupt. Alrighty. Okay, well, I think that's us.
Yeah.
So,
I love a time.
it's only a little bit over. And it is
It's
the longest story arc.
It is a very long.
So, we've got the Massacre of St. Bartholomew up next. And then the Ark and the Celestial Toymaker. So, do you want to do maybe 2 of the next stories and then a big finish?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Because, I mean, these stories are getting bigger and bigger, man.
Yeah, very much.
It's crazy. Alrighty, well, this has been Whoscussion. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.